So the God of High School concludes with episode 13 for its first season of probably many, because I doubt with the popularity this show has, it's going to be a one and done show. This episode, walking into it, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to see, because last week was, well, it was hard to understand narratively what was happening. Visually, looked amazing, sounded amazing. What's new with this show? Mappa went all in and proving themselves worthy to animate shows like Attack on Titan, because goddamn did this show look visually impressive in that opening. No competition, best opening of the season for me. It was just so jammy and just the music overall, so great. Narratively, it was hard to understand what happened last week, but it was fun, it was badass. I love seeing giant ass things toss around giant ass things. Power of gods, all that stuff. It just tickles my fancy. It's a fun little quirk that I don't see many anime have in terms of this polished of a show. You see a lot of like insanity, but never to this fidelity, this high quality presentation. Walking into this episode, really I wanted to see hopefully one of the best, if not the best fights. Something that gives me hope for season 2 in terms of its narrative, that things will slow down possibly, or at least put more focus on the story rather than just the cool fights, and maybe just throw me a couple of interesting curveballs. Overall, I think the pacing for me in this episode was a lot smoother and a lot more digestible than what we saw last week, which I still am unsure what we saw last week. Visually, amazing. Narratively, have no idea. But this episode, I mean, you get some major reveals, like you learn that Jinmori is son Wukong, the Monkey King. Not Borwing power, legitimately is the god himself. So that's going to be quite interesting to explore into season 2, because Jin's always been about the whole idea that he's not going to borrow power, and now we learn that it's not like he got his ability and now he's like kind of contradicting himself. No, somehow he's been hibernating for a long time. We have no idea what happened because I mean, he slept for 3 months after using all of his energy here. Did he sleep for thousands of years, wake up and forget who he was, and then he started to enroll in a school after his grandpa raised him? Like, I'm unsure of what happened, like when his body dies, does he get reborn? I mean, there's a lot of like ups and downs with character bodies. I mean, the person who grants the wish in this show, if she's not at full power, just kind of shrinks down into like a little chibi body. So it's hard to say exactly what happened there, but I am sure that's going to be a major importance for the story overall. And I feel like that's going to be the main story hook of why did Jin's grandfather take him in? How much did he know? What the hell's going to happen with his grandfather? One arm gone. Apparently he's going to have to fight his grandpa, like, shit's not looking good for him. There's just a lot of interesting possibilities with the season 2, and while a lot of season 1 didn't make sense unless you probably read the webtoon, and even if you did, it may not have made that much sense to begin with, in terms of where they left off, I feel like I can see where they can go narratively, and hopefully in return that will make sense of some of those past events. That to me is what I want to see. As long as this isn't all there is, if this was to conclude right here, right now, I would be very disappointed, because there's so much I don't know, so much I want to ask, so much I want to see. However, if you make me think that you're getting more seasons, and with as popular as this is, I don't see Crunchyroll giving it up anytime soon. I feel to me this says that this is probably going to get a couple more seasons at the very least. So as long as those seasons make me understand more, I'm okay just watching gods toss around other gods left and right, because visually it is badass. And that to me is just fun. I like having, and some people I guess will claim that as like the turn your brain off type things, and technically that is true, but for me it's just fun. It's so visually impressive. It's why I've always loved watching like makeshift kind of like fan-made trailers and stuff like that, where they take like video game characters from different series and clash them together into these really cool animated fights. It is fun. That's exactly what it is. And when I do slow down and kind of see like, okay, what are you trying to tell me here? Doesn't technically make sense, and that's probably a big issue. Hopefully in the future you will. There's something here that I just want to see more of. And while some people may say, okay, go read the webtoon because that's actually where it makes sense, I love the visuals here, and I'm really hoping season 2 is going to prove a lot of people wrong, myself included, that it will have time to slow it down, because they did a lot of chapters in these 13 episodes. So I'm hoping the reason they crammed so much in 13 was so when we get to that season 2, we can take it a lot slower, maybe do half of the chapters, put a focus more on the characters, because this episode did have some interesting narrative twists. I mean, the fact that we do have, once again, the key back into possession, hopefully with Ilpio, because he has a new quest of basically finding the fragments and piecing it back together because he's going to be the guardian. I honestly firmly believed that once Jin beat this monstrous form, he was going to get the key, because that's kind of what you generally expect. Hell, in this fight, you probably expected with his power-up when you get the giant-ass staff come down, and then he puts it in his hands and he's smacking this fool left and right. he literally extends it as he's being thrown through the air as he punches him. Like, that shit was badass. But they actually made it work with his team, his friends, though he wasn't powerful enough to do it himself, and I like that. I like how they were able to incorporate a kind of like friendship is magic trait, but actually do it in a way so it wasn't just he's the main character, so of course he was going to one-shot him. I really like that about this. And the fact that we have an interesting narrative with the Guardian for the Key, the uncertainty of why there's a literal god in the flesh standing before these characters. Why can he slumber for 3 months and come out and be like, I don't really know what happened, but, I guess this is how it's going. There's some interesting things happening with this story that I really hope Season 2 slows it down with, because if they do, I think a lot of the complaints that even myself have had with just the pacing, it feels like they're just rushing, and they're like, this is really cool. I wish I understood this character's motivation a lot more. Rushing, like, oh, who's this? But goddamn it, do you look cool? That's kind of how this season felt. And the reason I'm not so harsh on it is because even when it's like pacing is wonky as shit, it looks, it sounds, it is cool as shit. It is fun. I haven't had a show that was this visually impressive just for its action and with as much action in quite some time. So I'm just having fun with it. And the great thing is when we're not in the action, I see the potential. And, I'm not saying people have to feel the same way. This is just how I feel. This is my review. But some people will ask me, I don't get how you like it. I hate it. This. It's just fun to me. That's my only explanation. It feels fun, and I love the idea of gods and just merging with the human world in this big overarching like cultist plot. The uncertainty of the grandpa, there's potential here. If Season 2 doesn't fix the pacing, it's just going to be a fun show for me to watch for the visuals, and I'm going to have no hope for the narrative. But I have hope for the narrative, because I feel like the reason it rushed was to get to these points, but obviously only time will tell. In terms of the fight though in this episode, best visually animated fight for sure. I've heard a lot of people who haven't been a fan of the anime really excited for this episode for something to happen, and I imagine it's kind of the realization of who Jin Mori is. And I absolutely love just the 3D camera work. It felt like a 3D environment as the camera was spinning around. You couldn't keep track of everything was happening. It actually felt like a god just tossing fools left and right, and you knew the end of the world was near. I mean, look at the destruction even 3 months later after everything. I love moments like that. It was an absolute visual feat, and I loved every minute of watching just the teamwork, the annihilation, and how everyone kind of got their chance to shine. And even though it's a little cliche, I love seeing just them walking together, holding each other up, just being like, the friendships they made along the way actually matters. Cringy as shit, but goddamn did they get me with it, especially with the music and how they built up that atmosphere overall. And it was nice to see that despite Jin being this all-powerful being, he wasn't good enough to defeat him by himself, and it took the entire team working together. So I think that'll help some people being like, okay, he has this really powerful ability, but still has a long way to go, and clearly he has to really master and unlock everything that he's clearly forgotten. It's going to be fun to see what's going to happen there, but I was actually surprised by the wish here, because even though I knew he was going to wish for everyone to be healed, I wasn't expecting it to be that magical and majestic. I thought it was kind of like a, hey, you can grant a wish, but it's not actually magical. But this is the god of Huixiu. God's in the name. It's not surprising that a wish can be granted. It's just a matter of the limitation is seemingly death. So it's very interesting to see all those people who I thought were down for the count forever. And I'm wondering if it's do you have to have the tournament? Is it a set years before the wish can be granted again? It's uncertain for sure, but I mean, it was nice to see a very nice conclusion for such a brutal end stage, which was absolutely phenomenal. The pacing was wonky as hell. It's hard to make sense of the narrative at multiple points, but it was charming. It had a flair that just entertained me beyond words, and well, some people may call that guilty pleasure. Some people will say go read the webtoon, it's way better. I had fun with it. That's all I care about. As long as anime entertains me, that's all I'm here for. It just felt like there's some possibilities with the Monkey King storyline, and I'm hoping Season 2 delivers on what I'm hoping to see out of it. But of course, as always, let me know your thoughts and feelings either on episode 13 or the season overall. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you're feeling, all comments are allowed down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, of course, you'll like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you have been new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.